Welcome everyone to the Recovery with Dignity workshop. Thanks for taking the time to be with us for these important conversations over the last 3 days from many different time zones and despite the difficult and unusual circumstances everybody has been in. So really thank you all for that. I'm Garima Jain and I'm a practice consultant at the Indian Institute for Human Settlements or IIHS. I'm currently based in Delhi and my colleague Yashodhara Udupa is a media consultant at the IIHS currently located in Bangalore, and we will both be co-moderating this session. This workshop is a part of a 3-year project called Recovery with Dignity, co-led by IIHS and the University of East Anglia, based in Norwich. It was funded by the British Academy, and the project explored the experiences of recovery in post-disaster situations across 3 states in India, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, and examined how recovery processes and actors represent vulnerable people and places. But truly, at the heart of the project has been a focus on recognizing and respecting the dignity of affected populations in a way that they can recover fully on their own. This workshop has been an experiment to draw from a variety of cases and different knowledge systems that suggest alternate pathways to reimagine recovery, such that the focus shifts from a limited view of post disaster to a more fulfilling and sustainable life for the people. In particular, it aims to draw lessons from past disasters about recovery narratives, responses, and outcomes to understand the way forward for post disaster and especially this post COVID 19 era that we are all part of. This particular session will attempt to repivot this dominant recovery view from post disaster to understanding the importance of pre existing lives and aspirations of people and what role can art play in helping people not just voice their needs, but also in finding ways for self recovery. And to help us do that, we have with us an esteemed set of panelists today with vast and diverse experiences, as you'll hear from me as I briefly talk about their profiles. So first we have Mr. Subodh Pattnaik. He's a theatre director and playwright from Odisha. He's the founder of Bhubaneswar-based theatre group called Natya Chetana and a theatre village, Natyagram. His group has developed psychotheaters, a unique approach where they take the theatre to the people on cycles across the state and draw their stories as well as artists from the communities. His play Geeta was inspired by the life of a woman and her aspirations to be a musician. However, the play ends with her losing her music teacher husband and all other family members to the 1999 super cyclone. We have RV Ramani. He's one of the leading documentary filmmakers in India, who has established a unique style of his own, making independent impressionistic documentaries, which have found recognition both in India and abroad. He has traveled widely with his films and retrospectives, which have been presented in many international film festivals. He regularly conducts filmmaking workshops at many institutions and is a visiting professor at the Ambedkar University in Delhi. His film Camera, My Camera and the Tsunami is a depiction of his life and others' lives through the lens of his camera and what losing that to the tsunami truly meant. We have then Lekshmi Menon with us. She's a designer and social entrepreneur. She runs the organization Pure Living in Cochin, and which is dedicated to finding sustainable livelihood solutions and also propagating awareness in society about the importance of green living. Post 2018 floods in Kerala, she, along with her colleagues, came up with Chandamangalam Kutti, also known as Chekutty Dolls, made from garments which were soiled during the floods, giving handloom weavers new means to livelihoods. More recently, in Kochi, she developed Shaya, a mattress made from waste materials to help COVID centers with mattress shortages. This initiative also provided employment opportunities for women. So we'll hear both about the Chekutty dolls and Shaya from her today. We also have with us Teresa Armijos Burneo. She's a lecturer in natural resources and international development at the School of International Development at University of East Anglia in UK. Her research explores the relationship between humans and the environment by looking at the politics of natural resource management, hazards and risk from a citizenship, human rights and environmental justice perspective. She explores the role that combining different methodologies from the social and physical sciences with the arts and and humanities can play in understanding risk to natural hazards and finding innovative ways of empowering communities to respond and cope with these challenges in the long term. Apart from our panelists, we also have with us Rajasi Ray from Ladyfingers Co, who will be documenting the session graphically, and we'll be showing that graphic right towards the end. So do stay on for that. The session is being recorded and is being live streamed. The relevant links will be posted on the chat just right away. And as the discussion progresses, I request the audiences to feel free to use the chat function to introduce themselves and share any thoughts that you may have. If you have any specific questions, though, please use the Q&A function at the bottom to post them so they don't get lost in the chat. I welcome all the panelists as well as everyone in the audiences, of course, and thank you for taking the time today despite these challenges times to be with us. So with that, I'll also just briefly talk about the format this session is going to take. So we will first show short clips or visuals from the panelists' own works before we pose a question to each one of them. So we'll go around the room. And after this, we will request, of course, Teresa to share her thoughts on the three panelists' inputs and overall on the arts-based methods. We will then have an open conversation weaved in with audience questions. So with that, I will first request Yasho to share a short clip from the play Geeta, which is in Odia, but hopefully it will be quite self-explanatory, and hopefully Subodh will also talk about it later in this session. Yasho. Well, I will not try to summarize what just happened here, and will let Subodh talk when he does. But Subodh, first question to you is that, we know that like many others in this field of disaster risk and recovery, I understand that you were also introduced to this disaster response purely by accident after 99 super cyclone, when you found yourself in the midst of crisis and felt that there was a need to support. So apart from the work you did on the field, you also created this play, Geeta, which was inspired by the life of one of the super cyclone survivors, where the play turns itself sort of this idea on its own head, this usual approach of looking at life after the disaster, but the entire play focuses on her life and her aspirations from before. So from your experiences of meeting and living with affected communities, uh, what lessons would you like recovery actors to draw from this alternate approach of life before? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be in this kind of discussion. And Odisha, in case, is a very interesting place of disasters one after another. And being in the coastal belt region, we are also a victim of the continuous disaster processes. So we are a victim, as well as we wanted to help the other victims who are more acutely faced the disaster even more than us. So in that way, in 1999, we lost some kind of our cottages or something like that. But in Ersama, in Paradip area, there was 20,000 people died within 2 hours. And it was very big disaster at that time. There was no place to get inside. So initially, Natya Chetana thought we are not social workers to go and distribute reliefs or help anybody directly, but we will take care of the coordination unit of the NGOs, which was there functioning in Bhubaneswar. But as a theatre director and a playwright, I was observing what was being reported from the field every evening. Suddenly, I found after about 20 days, people have been detected as psychological patients, and they were being promoted to get into the hospital in Cuttack in psychiatry department, and they were getting electric shock for as a treatment. So that was a very big shock for me, and I was having some kind of doubt on that. How can this make like this? Because people are not facing cyclone for the first time in their life in the coastal region. Anyway, it was a very big one, super cyclone. But then I went to the field, and then I found that actually they are not mad or crazy or psychologically having some psychological physical problem which can be treated with shock. It is just because everybody around them were all victims, and everybody had a big story to tell, and there was nobody to listen from them. So many of them, they suppressed their own pathos, own kind of disaster experience within themselves, which was hurting them again and again, and making them remember how they have lost their direct relatives or neighbors or any kind of connections. So it was a very big thing to listen from them. And then second one was that for 1 month, more or less, absolutely there was no light, there was no electricity in that area. So after 6 o'clock, everywhere it was only dark and dark and dark. So this darkness also was eating them. And third, they were not having any kind of regular engagements. The paddy fields were destroyed, the school was destroyed, so children were idle, and all the housing was completely destroyed. So the women who used to live from morning to night in the house, they were also idle. So how much time they can be idle, and how much time they can talk and wait for relief? So that was the situation at that time. And we were being reported that many reliefs are coming, but the initial villages were looting them. And the final villages away from the main road were not getting proper relief also. So then we thought, as theatre worker, let us attend the psychological status of the people. So we went and stayed there. And the first program was listen to them. That was a very big experience. People started talking to us. And when we put our generator and a light, 3, 4 villages could see it from a distance, and many people were gathering in our camp just to sit down in light for a few hours, and then they go back. They were not having any kind of major disturbances or connection with us. Just they used to, we were nearby a pond and also a temple. So they have a very big space there. So they were sitting and going on. So this was the condition at that time. Since then, till now, we are very much worried that in all disasters, people immediately think of having a restoration of the physical status, the housing, the road, the relief material for food, clothing. This is the first response and the only response for many days. Nobody thinks about the mental health, which is also a very recognized part of a body and mind. So that is how we were worried. Until now also, we are pushing this idea that you are spending crores of rupees for vaccination or for any protection or for any kind of housing structures and all that. But please take care of the mental health. And till today, the cultural activities in a village was the major balance rod between the body and mind. People were very much loving to be together, talk together, and see some kind of reflection of their life on the stage, and to listen songs, play music. So in Odisha particularly, is very fortunate enough till today, we have 15 dominant folk theatre form existing in villages for last 500 years, all different to each other, and it is still practiced by many groups. We have a association of Pala groups having more than 1,000 groups affiliated to the association. We have more than 25 professional theater group of a form called Prahlad Natak. We have Daskatia groups. Jatra has become an industry, having 200 Jatra parties of different volume of investment. So you can know that the people love to be with around the cultural activities. All the temples have kirtan, music, dance, everything. Everywhere, even churches, they used to have songs. So that is how we were very much worried. We studied and we started attending the artists who are there in the villages. Few groups have lost their musicians. Few groups they have lost their main singer. Few groups have lost their main actor. So we tried to help them to rebuild the team again with somebody's help. So in that way, in a series of moving, we saw that people are not interested in reconstruction of their houses, even just because they may be deducted from the relief or aid coming for the housing. So at that time, we wanted to criticize the status through puppetry. So we used puppetry as a kind of way to comically, with a comedy touch, to criticize that please don't wait for relief all the time. This is not a time to beg. It is to restore your self-esteem. It is a time to really recover your own dignity. So that is why we did a play. So in a village, when we did this play, suddenly a lady at the corner of the audience cried. We were worried. We thought, oh my God, we were criticizing, but we were criticizing the men mainly. And secondly, it was through puppet and people were laughing, clapping. But why this lady cried? Then immediately we went to the lady after the play, and many of the other people were around her. And then they said, Sir, her husband was our music teacher. We were disciple of this teacher. And our star has lost his life with the harmonium. He left the house. when this flood came into their house. And after that, their house got collapsed. So their two son, two daughter-in-law, and six grandchildren, all were suppressed under the roof of that house. And this only one lady who wanted to search and follow her husband could survive. And the husband flew to some part she couldn't recognize. So then she became how to say, got stuck, and she couldn't speak, and she was not able to cry, and we were worried that perhaps she has become mad and she was supposed to go to Cuttack for getting shock therapy. But we are surprised. She is now crying. She is releasing her pain. So then we asked and tried to talk to her. Then she spoke two words that I listened the harmonium sound after the disaster. And that was my food for the whole day. And please give me your harmonium. I want to play now. I was stopped by my mother-in-law when I married to sing song. But I married to this man to learn how to sing. But I had to stop with a promise. I touched the head of my Sasuma, and then I had to say that, okay, I leave my singing career. So that is how now nobody is there to stop me. Please give me your harmonium. I am staying in the Sneha Vijan house with among the children. I want to sing before them with this harmonium. This was very, very delicate, and it was very, very sensitive, and it was very, very emotional moment at that time. So I said, Ma, please allow us to play further two performances of the day with this harmonium. We promise you to give harmonium day after tomorrow. Then we came back after performance, and we decided that we will cut our food budget of our camp to save 3,000 rupees within 2 days time to go to Cuttack and buy a harmonium and give her back. So that is how we did it. After this, it was so much in our heart. It was so hurting to me as a playwright that I said, okay, I take it as a case study of total process, and we will do it as a play. So that is how we did this play, and it was all about the song. So we named this play as Geeta, Geet. So that is what because this man was a kirtan player, and this girl was listening to kirtan every time when she used to go to the temple, and she was in her mind in love with this man, and that, oh, beautiful music master, and I must learn to sing from him. So that was the case. But she had to leave her wish to learn just because of this tradition of Sasuma promising the Bohu not to go out for singing. So that is the case. So I think let me take a pause in that. It's a long answer I could give to explain what is background of Geeta. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Subodh. I think that's a good start, and I think it really relates to what we're going to next. So before I call on Ramani to respond to some of the questions we have, I just want to share a small clip from his film My Camera and Tsunami. And once we're done with that, we'll just chat with him.
And when I got up from here, I thought I'm dead, After all this, you stopped yourself, and then you get up, and then for a moment I was not sure whether I'm alive or dead. It was like that. It was very confusing. You think maybe I'm thinking I'm alive. My body is already dead, gone, and my mind is thinking it's alive. So it's projecting its own image. So all these things came up. There was this kind of displacement. My mind became displaced. I filmed the tsunami when it came, and it was difficult to film it. You know, it's like you don't know where to compose, whether to hold it steady and keep it like this, or. And there was also people shouting around you, and I was worried about the children next to me. So and then the exposure was also not coming. It was very bright, so couldn't find the exposure, correct exposure. So all that was happening, and I want to see the waves also. And then I filmed it, and I ran with the camera while it was running, and I was drowned into the water while the camera was running. And somehow in my mind, I was very strong that I'm not going to leave this camera. I'm going to hold it, whatever happens. And so it became part of my body. And then it was very tight. Still, my fingers are paining, you know, the way I held it. All this bone, everything is paining still. I'm not able to still bend it. I held it very strong. And my mind was also, because of this, was concentrating a lot, you know. I said, I'm going to save this camera. I'm going to save myself. I'm going to hold my breath. So all this is complementary. I think the camera made me think like that, or I thought like that because of the camera. So the camera became my life savior at one point. So it survived. The camera survived in my hand, but it died inside. You know, the body survived, but it died inside. And the tape is, for me, the soul of the camera. You know, at that moment, that it recorded its last moments. And when I came back to the place where I was staying, for 3 days I was watching television, you know, of people dying, waves coming in Thailand, Indonesia, everywhere, in Andamans and Nicobars. But I didn't see anything that I filmed, you know. What I saw was something different.
So anyone who knows Ramani knows that the camera is very much an extension of who he is, and he's always seen with the camera. For those of you who haven't watched the film, I really urge you to watch it. It's on YouTube. So this section that we saw basically follows a really moving bit where Ramani describes the day and how he ended up on the beach, etc. But I picked this particular section because it addresses so many things we're trying to understand in this project. The sense of displacement you spoke about, and Subodh also alluded to, and trying to orient oneself after an event like this. Ramani, you also say that you saw so many visuals that were of the tsunami in the days that followed, but it did not represent what you saw and what you felt. You mentioned later in the film as well that this one preoccupation of yours and ours as well, especially in this project, about the politics of image making, and your work also has constantly addressed this. So could you talk about that in relation to making of this film?
Yeah. Yeah, it feels strange to watch the film today after a long time, actually. I mean, it is that thing, you know, that when you watch the footage of the television, whatever people have shot, and you saw it, and what I experienced watching it, they're so different because I was so fascinated by looking at it. You know, when the waves were coming towards us, I was just mesmerized. You know, and it was like you have never seen something like this, and you feel very gifted that you saw something. You were seeing something like this. You don't know what's going to happen, but you at least saw something. And that excitement remained with me throughout, you know, throughout the process of being in the water, getting drowned, and going for a long time in the water and all that. So throughout the process, that image of what I saw, of this entire 180 degrees sea just coming like that, and with the sound, and that I filmed it, you know, and it's there in my hand, and it is, and I need to protect it in some way. So it was that thing, you know, and so that's how it was. So it was like throughout the post-disaster, like people were in deep sorrow and, you know, all that, and calculating how much of death and how many of those people. I was also involved in those processes actually at the time. But somehow my experience was a bit distant from all that, you know, in the sense that I was still in that high of being in this process of this extreme, huge power, you know, of the sea, and that I've been part of that, and I've felt it very deeply. That feeling is very immense, And also as I mentioned in the footage that you showed, that one was not sure whether one is alive or dead. It was impossible to understand. And that became my center of the film, actually, that the notion of the reality or the imagination, or beyond imagination, whatever. How do you? The whole film was pitched on that idea that what you say, what I talk about, is not necessarily true, in that sense, but it is true in that sense. So it is a subjectivity of an experience that I wanted to bring it to the fore. At the same time, say it in such a way that it is not that. Whatever I'm saying in the film, it is not that. It is that kind of a quality I wanted to retain in the film, because most of the filmmaking, you're talking about the politics, most of the filmmaking or any kind of work, I mean, is about describing, about arguing, about like positioning, about taking sides and this and that. So I always try to move away from that kind of a thing, and always try to express myself in some way where different levels of meanings comes through, not necessarily from what is shown, but it allows a lot of possibilities to open up, of thinking and understanding and all that. So that's the attempt. And I just continued with that same policy with this film also. Now added this element that, whether what I saw and what I imagined and that experience of death and this and that, I just brought everything into it. And in fact, the film starts with this particular passage of mine talking about the tsunami, but the film is not about the tsunami. It's like the rest of the film is something else. It is about the camera, homage to a camera, which died, a partner of mine. So it is a different level of dealing with imagery itself, the notion of how usually images are dealt with and how I wanted to deal with it in a different way. So it's a kind of a puzzling kind of displays. Even the images become slightly displaced. So all that I experience in the film and all the experiences that I go through in the footage of the film, it's all placed in such a way that this is not what it is. So it was like that.
Thank you.
Shorter answer, maybe.
Yeah. We'll come back to you in a bit. So I'll just move on now to Lekshmi also. But for the audience, what I want to do first is to take the opportunity to show these. So Lekshmi was involved in creating these little Chekutty dolls in 2018 after the Kerala floods there. And for those of you who aren't aware about it, please feel free to look it up. But what I want to do is actually to read a little note that goes along with it. What it says is that Chekutty has scars, Chekutty has stains. Chekutty is each one of us who has survived the floods. Chekutty, the mascot of rebuilding a better Kerala, represents our unity, solidarity, and resilience. So Chekutty is made by communities across the world by upcycling flood-ravaged fabric. All the proceeds went to the weavers from a weaver society in Chendamangalam, and each Chekutty gives a new lease of life to the weavers community. So this is what she did in 2018 after the floods in Kerala. But I actually want to fast forward, take a couple of steps forward from Chekutty to COVID. So Lekshmi, if you could tell us how you applied the learnings from upcycling damaged fabrics that the weavers had made to last year when you started making bedrolls out of scrap that was being created from material that was discarded in the process of making PPE kits. So what role did doing this play in the lives of the people last year?
Yashodhara, thank you for inviting me to this platform. So delighted to share the platform with such eminent personalities. Chekutty, I think that doll gave me so much of confidence that, if you are positioning something in the right manner, if you have a very strong story with a lot of social implications, people would definitely welcome it with open hands. Because I think the community, they're all looking for avenues through which they can also be part of the solution, right? So that is actually what gave me the confidence, the way we could revive handloom in a major way. That is what gave me the confidence to actually find opportunity in crisis, whenever possible. As I think in Japanese or Chinese, I'm not sure, they say, when they write the word crisis, they make it express it with 2 lines, it seems. They say, while you should be aware of the danger, you should not miss the opportunity that comes with it. So that's what I've been trying to practice in, whatever projects that I've been doing. So in this case, I was told that, I was very, like every one of us, we are very much updated with what's happening around. See, we were aware of the huge waste that is being generated in the form of masks and PPE gowns, used ones, right? Along with that, parallelly, there was, I think it's my fashion designer background that really helped me to find that, almost equal amount of trash that is being generated in the source where they make these gowns and things, when they cut the sleeve and the neck and things like that. And the tailors doesn't know like what to do with it, because it has a plastic lining and it is not something that they're very familiar with, because all the tiny tailoring shop has been converted into making these PPE gowns. So they had been stocking it up in huge piles. They couldn't burn it like they used to with the regular fabric. And that's when I thought, okay, and there's a lot of employment that was lost in my neighborhood, and daily wages had become completely jobless. And also there was a huge spike in the demand of the mattresses in the FLTCs, the first line treatment centers. In Kerala alone, there was a demand of around 50,000 mattresses, and with the lockdown and everything, we are not able to, logistically we're finding it difficult to procure it. So I thought, okay, why don't I just connect these dots and use that, the scrap that comes with the at the tailoring centers. It comes like, it's a very fluffy, easy to use and beautiful lightweight material. It comes in all sizes and shapes. So I just made a rope of it just by braiding those. There will be like long pieces and also tiny pieces that we just integrate while we braid it. And so there is no skill required. And around 37 meters of such rope, when placed on a table and tied it together, would convert it into a full-fledged mattress, a 6 by 2 feet mattress. So there is no needle, no machine, not even a thread that is used in it. So pretty much every part of that PP scrap is being utilized in this. So in 3 months, we could upcycle around 9,000 kilos, and we were supplying it to all the panchayats. And the best thing was that the plastic element in it really became a good advantage, because it just slips off. When you wash it, you can completely immerse it in soap water, dry it, and reuse it again. Because they were given the instruction that once a COVID patient leaves that place, that mattress has to be burned. So that have been called out a huge ecological, impact. So this one, they can reuse it. So now we are training in around 8 countries, because even after COVID, you can just use any random cloth, even a chunni, sari, curtain, undergarments, everything, anything if that is sanitized and clean, that can be converted into a mattress like this and donate it to the homeless. So we had been training people in women in shelter homes. They had been making it. The CSR give them the wages, and that is being donated to the homeless on the streets. So it's been impacting lives in so many segments now. So that is a Shaya project.
That's great. Garima, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah, just listening to all three of you, I mean, I think in some ways, I feel like there's this connection of objects in a very interesting way. Like in Subodh's your story, like the harmonium played such an important part of this person's life before and her aspirations. It was symbolic of a lot of like her being and what she wanted to do with her own life, and what she thought recovery could mean really for her. And then I think, Ramani, in your story, I think this idea of using the lens to see or to even remember what the life before and after, it was kind of like this, it was almost like you can see that it's a window. And I think in your film also there's this one little segment right in the middle of the film where you have a colleague who's talking about how an object can be seen, it kind of encapsulates time in a way that there is, you look through the window, you think about the past also from the same window, you think about also the future from the same window. So how that window is kind of symbolic in that sense, I think I thought that was how that object kind of plays on in a very interesting way. And then I think also, Lakshmi, in your this entire the Chekutty Dolls thing, and even here the PP, how this material and how you've taken the saris in the case of Chekutty, and how even though they were spoiled during the floods, and how the PPE is kind of waste in this space, but you've managed to think about that as an opportunity. So how the 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 uh, the association with objects in certain ways, and not just purposefully, and of course in Lakshmi, your case, of course there's a purpose to it, you've put it to use, but there is that certain psychological utility of these objects in themselves. I thought that was quite powerful, and something that why I would say, like, how artifacts in museums and how people kind of relate to these objects, and different people relate to the same object in different ways as well, I think kind of plays along quite well. But I won't take too long on that. I would definitely get Teresa, who knows about these things better than I do. So Teresa, a question then for you to reflect on these three narratives that we just heard, but drawing on your own work on various methodologies, and to understand recovery needs, what would you suggest are alternate ways for researchers and practitioners, to what could they do to approach assessing recovery needs and enabling people in self-recovery in some ways?
Thank you, Garima, and thank you for these very, very interesting, more than presentations, like sharing of your experiences that are very inspiring. And your point, Garima, around symbols is very, very important here. And I would like to share some of the work that, as a researcher, so I work at the University of East Anglia. I'm a researcher, and I use participatory methods based on the arts to work with people who have experienced disasters. I'm going to bring you to the other side of the world, to Latin America, and I'm going to share some images from there. If I'm going to share my screen now, I hope you can see that. I think you can now. Yes, thank you. Okay, so what I want to do, and I will speak to what you have talked about, because all of what you've said is very relevant, and it connects very well to the work that I've been doing. Quickly, I want to tell you a little bit of what this is about. So I want to talk about how art can support psychosocial recovery. Based on this experience, we've worked across many different places, but I want to focus on this one. There was an eruption in 2018, a volcanic eruption in Guatemala, a volcano that is called Volcán de Fuego, that killed approximately 400 people. I've been working in this area for a while, in the area of volcanic hazards. And so we wanted to bring together people who have lived volcanic disasters in other countries together. This is what we did in Guatemala in 2019. We invited survivors of a volcanic eruption in Colombia in 1985, a volcano that is called Nevado del Ruiz, where more than 25,000 people died. And also we invited some survivors from Ecuador, in another volcano that is called Tungurahua, to come together to Guatemala in 2019. What we did was we painted murals in different places. And again, going back to Garima's point, it is about rebuilding symbols of what brings the community back, what brings that network back together. We did something which we exchanged knowledge. This is the point of this work. You come together in very special places. We were very lucky to be under a beautiful tree that is very symbolic for these people, because that is normally the place where they get together for their meetings. We the people that had come from other countries, including us, we were also, coming from outside. We came together to talk about those past experiences, what had happened in all of their countries. In terms of the eruptions and people dying, people recovering, etc. And because of COVID, we couldn't finish the project. We couldn't go back to Guatemala because we were going to go back to Guatemala. So what we've done is we've now, in each one of the countries, in Guatemala, in Colombia, and in Ecuador, we've sent these bags with art materials, so that we can continue the conversation online. And this is our colleague giving the bags to some of the people in Guatemala, but they've arrived to Ecuador, they've arrived to Colombia, and also to us as researchers. This is very important. We are also part of this process, like all of you are. I am a researcher, you're not. You're artists, filmmakers, but you're part of the process. And this is what is important here, that we're not separated, because people are either sharing their stories with us or we are part of the stories. And that is also our memory. This is something that we've been reflecting a lot through our work. So through this exercise, we've been sharing stories on WhatsApp and on meetings every Sunday, every 2 Sundays, where we've made different works of art. And instead of me telling you what this process has been, I want to bring Roberto, who's one of the participants, to tell you what this has meant for them. So I'm gonna read it quickly. One day we received an invitation from a university. You see, it doesn't matter who we are. And when we met and listened to them, it was like a rain cloud in the middle of the desert. They listened to us and we listened, understood and learned from those who had already lived it before. They warmed our hearts and opened windows where a very strong light entered that gave us encouragement to recover our broken hearts. We made a mural of hope, trust and strength, where each other made a contribution, realizing in each brush stroke the pain that still lived in our hearts. Now we can show the world that we live because we learned from history. We will keep the memories alive so that the sons and daughters can honor the memory of the innocents who passed on the 30th of June 2018, honoring them with the promise of never forgetting each of the doors that were never opened for us. And then just to finish and to bring it together with what you have talked about, for us, what has become very clear about the use of art and of objects and of symbols is that it opens spaces for knowledge exchange between survivors, between people who had already experienced that. It allows people to know that they are not alone, that they are not the only ones that have gone through this. And this is very powerful, very important. But also that because it's not only through words, it's through painting, through emotion, people decide how and what they want to share and remember, but also not to forget. This is something we continuously hear people, and from your work, from your experiences, I'm sure you know this, that there is a lot around what people don't want to forget so that it doesn't repeat. This is the point about history not repeating, it not happening and again. Open the doors that were not open for us. This is what Roberto was telling us. And going back to your point, Garima, that recovery is the return of collective symbols. This is what you, Subodh, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, you did in those meetings with the music, with the theater, when you turned on with the light and people coming together, what you just shared with us, is the return of those symbols. And I'm sure the woman that cried, that is what that happened at that moment. Art and emotion, of course, in your case, in what you shared was what brought that back, and that return of the collective symbols is what allows for recovery, and that is why we believe that the art-based methods are very powerful in that process, because it's not that symbols are emerging; they are returning, and that return is where the power is in terms of recovery and memory. And of course, as I was saying before, that memory also means preventing future disasters, preventing these things happening again. And I want to just make a few, one more comment in terms of what you were saying, Ramani, that remembering also means remembering what we want to remember and not forget. In your case, you were talking about the camera and what it was part of you, of your extension of your body in a way. You want to remember that, you choose to remember that. And that is also something important in this work, that people should remember what they want and forget what they want. And through these spaces, we allow for that. And the other very, very important point is around listening. And this was clear from all of what you've said, that listening, just the act of sitting and listening to other people is important. The question that we're still dealing with is, what does it mean for us who are the ones that are listening? Yeah, because we are the ones that are going there, collecting the stories, filming, doing whatever it is that we do. How do we deal with that? And who are we in all of these stories? Are we a story, I don't know, story keepers, story sharers? Are we very privileged? Yes, I think we're all of the above, and that comes with a responsibility. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Garima, and thank you all for sharing this space with me.
Thanks a lot, Teresa, for that. Absolutely. I think I would now request, I think, the same order briefly before we open it up for the audiences. I think just briefly some quick responses from, we'll start maybe with in the reverse order. Maybe Lakshmi, you can go first. Just respond to what Teresa said, what you heard from Ramani and Subodh, and then maybe we'll get to Ramani, you, and then Subodhji. Just some quick reflections on this conversation.
Yeah, I think through all these projects, we had been touching upon the emotions of the people, right? I think rightly, like Subodhji said, there isn't much that is being done on the psychological, upliftment or recovery. In that sphere, everybody is focusing more on the infrastructure recovery and things like that. So I think Chekutty, that became a therapeutic tool. Through which many were saying that finally they've come in terms with it, and the way they were drawing the faces and they were decorating it. Even 90-year-old grandma was printing on the skirts of the Chekutty. She said, I was not able to contribute in any way, and I had to go through all these struggle and everything. So even by making just one Chekutty, I'm also laying a foundation stone towards rebuilding Kerala and recovering myself with a lot of dignity. So I think that's what pretty much everybody here is trying to do, right? They're pulling the right cord, which leads to that dignity.
Yeah, indeed. And I think this what you just said also makes sense, that there is that sense of that individual connection with that object, that individual connection, emotional connection, and then there is the shared idea of what collectively we all feel and what we are going through, and this idea of contribution. I think that's a really important one.
I think we were all creating a platform through which people could just come together and to feel that we are one. We are all going through the same thing, yet we can together do something about it.
So. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi, for that. Ramani, what do you think? Like this, this idea of in your case, you had a very individual connection with the camera, and your imagery, your own imagery, you thought was very different from the imagery that's collective. But how do you then relate to this, this collectiveness of this symbolic nature of emotional connection with things?
If I could also just add, Ramani, this was obviously a turning point in your life. So if you could also talk about what the making of this film and the telling and sharing of the story has meant to you. You're on mute.
Sorry. One is that you've gone through a trauma of a certain kind, but it is not just that trauma. What I have sensed is that it is representative of many traumas you go through. Like everyone goes through traumas in their own lives, and trauma means like suddenly something changed in your life unexpectedly, and that kind of puts you in a kind of a unexplored space, or mental and emotional or physical space. And that experience one has gone through. I've at least gone through many times, where it's not called tsunami, it's not called a cyclone, it's not called something else, but it is called something else, but the impact of that is similar in the sense that it puts you in a certain kind of a distress, and and then you have to overcome. So this tsunami experience for me became a kind of catastrophic experience of a lot of things, and kind of they all tumbled into one experience. So in a way, the film is talking about everything, but at the same time giving the experience of tsunami. And it is almost like touching the core of what this trauma is coming from, almost trying to reach that point, that something very, very, very crucial, which triggers of all these traumas in you, and which also helps you to recover, which also helps you to deal with it, negotiate. In a way, for me, this film, making of this film, is to negotiate or kind of come to terms with what I experienced going through this, and so So that way, the film definitely helped me, because I did find a new way to speak about it in a way, and even it surprised me to discover that, and that it is a new kind of form which is unique to this particular approach and this particular requirement, So that way, it really helped me to come to terms with it at a certain kind of ease, and I'm still having a very comfortable relationship with the Tsunami, in the sense that it's like it's more peaceful in a way, But it's still emotional. Today when we showed the footage, I thought, like, oh God, I'm getting very emotional again. Like what I will do. So it is like that. So it is at the same time, it is a very healthy relationship with the experience of it also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in fact, this whole time when I was watching all the clips, I've seen them many times. But now, even during the session, it was still, even though I have not been part of those images myself, but they were still very cathartic. They were still making me emotional at the same time. So there is a certain, I think, value that visuals and even the thoughts, the words, the choices of words that you had, I think made it, they were quite connecting.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, and the same thing I think goes with that little clip from the Odia clip from the film, from the theater.
Yeah.
I don't know Odia, but even listening to that and even listening to what's going on, it was still kind of quite emotional in its own way. I don't know, Subodh, would you like to sort of come in as well and talk about this idea of collectiveness in this?
In fact, I will take the cue from Ramani. Uh, um, for me, the Geeta play was a kind of a enlarged version in numbers in comparison to Ramani's movie. There, he was a kind of victim who wanted to explore within. Here, we were also a victim, and we had an experience with a lady, and we wanted to discover that within us to share to others through theater. And he opted for a documentary. That was the major difference, I feel. And our was a group affair, and it was his own self. And each of us, perhaps, were Ramani inside us in our experience. I think everybody who were there in the camp, and the person who were mediating, and even the lady was another form of Ramani. Everybody was Ramani there. So that is how I take it in that spirit. And secondly, it is very, very important to really highlight in the line of action to really attend the brain part of our body, which really gives order to our body. Like I now argue here in Corona situation that, okay, you have invested a lot of money for vaccination, lot of money for treatment, a lot of money for research work, everything will be there. So after, say, 2-3 years, there will be no Corona here. Our bodies will be there. But by this time, Corona had a very, very big mental impact. The symbols are always visible. The domestic violence has grown up a lot. Theft cases, even by very educated young boys, have gone very high. The drug addicts, number of drug addicts gone high. There are psychological patients in psychological doctors. The psychiatric clinics are now full. And there are many such kind of events are there. And I can say that before 2-3 years, before Corona, yearly I used to get maximum 3 to 4 or maximum 5 persons in my relatives or known circumstances who have passed away due to heart attack. But now, after Corona, every month I am getting 2-3 cases. In a year, I think I must have cases of more than 20-30 people of my known figures who have passed away just due to heart attack. Now people are hating to go to hospital to be treated with corona facilities, just because they are now more worried for their mental condition. Our relatives have admitted, they have been phoning us, please take me out from this place. Why? No, no, there are beds after beds here, and many people are dying every day, and I'm looking at them dying in front of me. And because of the rush in our cremation field, the dead bodies are now taken away from the bed to vacate the bed for next one to come, and the dead bodies are lying down in our verandas. And when they get a signal from the cremation field that, okay, now you can release dead body, then after 2 days, 3 days time, they declare he is dead on that day, and they inform the relatives to join in the cremation field, because all are done by government circuit. Government is doing this. So this is all are now affecting our brain. So after the vaccination, there will be human beings here, but many of our mindset would have been changed. Like just to steal perhaps others' property is a better way to run after job. This may come to the mind because of this habit, because everybody wants a little money and there is no job, there is no work, and they have made loan to make their, there is a case few months back. A boy got arrested who is a graduate. He was from a very good family, well-to-do family, took a loan, made a medicine store, and no, it was a garment store, and then the investment was there, but suddenly the corona came up, the lockdown, so his garment shop was closed, but the bank was running after for EMI. So what he did, he went through the YouTube channel how to rob a bank by individuals. He tried to search and he got some formula from there, and he robbed 3 banks. Because he is not a regular robber, he couldn't take precautions properly. So after 15 days, he could be cut, because he robbed from his own bank and paid back the money of the EMI to the same bank with using the same money. So he couldn't know this, that he can be cut for that. So why this boy came with a negative idea to rob a kind of bank? Why not he choose something else to do some business? Like Lakshmi said, that the disaster, the challenges also gives us opportunities. So he could have searched for some opportunities, and there are opportunities. Yeah. Many people have done their. I have my friends in Italy. They said that they have left doing theater for a few months, and they are now making masks.
Absolutely,
they're selling masks. So no, absolutely, he could have done something like that. Why he wanted to choose to rob? And the same way, many youngsters have started snatching on the way in a lonely place from scooter bike holders. So that is how I think the mentality becomes negative because of all this lockdown and being inside a room for so many time, and it has a very big mental impact.
Absolutely.
I used to push.
Absolutely.
We must do some performances before these people.
Yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. No, indeed, it is. There is going to be, we don't know as a society, we don't know what the repercussions of this is going to be in the long term, which is why I think taking this moment now to reflect on this and to find all these alternate ways of approaching and alternate ways first to understand what these different dimensions of losses and issues that are going to emerge, but also going forward how to actually deal with them in ways that are beyond what science, technology, engineering and the regular tools that we tend to use in technocratic ways. So arts is definitely going to be one of the things that needs to be explored. So I think we are already already a bit over the time that we were allotted. So thank you all so much for taking the time, for being with us, for having this really sort of reflective and very personal, sharing your personal experiences with us and with everyone also in the audiences. And we'll be in touch further. Hopefully, this is just a start of the conversations, and we'll take it forward because that's what is needed now. Thank you all. Yasho, any last words from you?
Garima,
Yes,
I want to just add. I just want to add one thing. That these two statues are a kind of mechanism of self-recovery from the depression through which we are passing through now as artists, because government and no other groups have given any help to artist community, recognize them as a really significant team of the society. But what I did, I started converting my whole inside the house work to a theater. And then I choose these two to be with me in front when I talk to my friends, that I am waiting with a hope when there will be performance and audience together in my front. And I will be the back door like a playwright and a director. So that is how we must create our own dignified way to recover from different disasters. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. For that, it is indeed a very nice window right there. Anything else, Yasho, that you'd like to add?
I was wondering if Roger wanted to add a couple of points. He put something on chat. Roger, do you want to just say something?
I think I obstructed Teresa. Teresa wanted to.
Yes, Teresa was next. Yes, don't worry about me. I'll probably reflect on some of these points later on today.
Teresa, please.
Just a quick one that I wanted to say before, and I had written it down, I forgot, that all of these are examples of highlighting people's capacities for self-recovery or for collective recovery. Very important in this type of work, because many times people are viewed as victims, and we are not only victims. People are also capable agents of recovery. Like everyone here has told their stories. Obviously, it comes very clearly from Lekshmi's work and with the dolls and the mattresses, but of all of the art, of the films, of everything, of the dance, and this is very, very important. So highlighting people's capacities through this is also a way of recovery. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Yeah, absolutely great. Thanks, Teresa, for that. Indeed, and hopefully we are on the road to recovery. Thank you all for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.